Hi, welcome to Toys and Hood. Today I'm going to talk about the Walking Dead roleplay game. My Kickstarter arrived this week. I've had a read through it and yeah, thought I'd share it with you guys. So originally I ordered just the core game and then when they came through at the end and they're like, oh, would you like to add anything else? I cracked and I also added the starter box to the game as well. So these both arrived last weekend. I think it cost me something like £60 for the two of them together. They're saving about £10 over the retail price. There's been some good offers over Black Friday, but that was last week. So these products are out now and available to buy on the Free League site. There is like a kind of double pack where you buy that, and I think maybe even the GM screen, and you save a few quid buying them that way. So before I look at the individual ones, just talk about the setting in general. The setting is the same as the TV series. So it's the TV series rather than comics, which isn't a particularly big difference. The TV series is a pretty faithful adaptation of the comic books, I think. The setting is the same, set in the US, in northeast Georgia, near Atlanta. You are free to move the setting to anywhere you want. Which is fairly typical of Free League Publishing's games. Quite often they're set in Sweden kind of nominally, which makes sense as Free League is a Swedish company, and then you can relocate them somewhere else. So they do that in Tales from the Loop, where the Loop is in I think it's either Sweden or Buffalo in America, but you can move that anywhere. Twilight 2000 is set in both Sweden and Poland. So it's not something that they've done that's new. It's fairly typical of Free League. And I mean, I adore Free League Publishing. I should probably say that now. Over COVID, I discovered the Alien roleplay game, which I ran Chariot of the Gods like 5 times for it, one of the adventures. Just absolutely love it. Also, the Tales from the Loop roleplay game. I really enjoyed playing that. And then I've also got Mortborg, Vassen, Twilight 2000 and their Blade Runner RPG. So yeah, I've become something of a fanboy. So the system they use is called the Year Zero engine. To cut a very long story short, what you do is you roll a number of 6-sided dice equal to an attribute, which will either be strength, agility, wits, or empathy in this case, and then a related skill. So for example, agility is broken down, so you've got mobility, ranged combat, and stealth. Every 6 you roll is a success. It's really straightforward, but as you can imagine, it's also quite tricky. You'll probably find that your attributes are kind of around the 2 value. Your skills, you'll be lucky if they're 2 or 3. So you're rolling 4 or 5 dice and hoping for a 6. So what it allows you to do is to push your roll. So you roll all your dice, and then you can re-roll any that you want. So you're only looking for 1 6 to succeed. Multiple 6s mean better success. Maybe you can do some kind of tricks at the same time. You don't just shoot someone and hit them when you roll 2 6s. You shoot them, you hit them, and then you might do extra damage. Or maybe you'll shoot the weapon out of their hand, something like that. It's a really nice storytelling mechanic. But you can push the roll, which lets you re-roll the dice. But when you push the roll, you become stressed. Now, that means that you go from rolling, you've got these black dice here. Let's see if I can get... So these are the ones that come in the starter set. They're standard dice. You can see they're largely 1, just normal faces there. But then you have a hit symbol on it. So you're looking for these hit symbols, which are 6. When you re-roll, you start adding stress dice. This is a walker die. The walker die is a red version. So you've got the hit there, the success there. Oh, it's not very clear on the picture, but there you go. But you also gain the walker symbol on the 1. There we go. Okay, so you roll one of those, then it's a bad thing will happen. It's not as prescriptive. There's a similar mechanic in the Alien roleplay game where there's a table that you roll on and that sort of shows how you react to the stress. In this one, rather than roll on the table, you simply mess up. And that's kind of the GM's choice of what happens to you. You could get attacked, you might run out of ammo, or just the threat level, which is sort of the presence of walkers in the area, might go up. It's never going to be a good thing, but at least the GM can choose what makes sense of the game. So that's a really cool improvement. You can reduce stress when you feel safe. So when you feel safe, when you are safe. So, if you could barricade a building and hide in it away from the walkers, you could start losing some stress. But of course, this mechanic, because you're rolling extra dice when you are stressed, there is something desirable about having a bit of stress. And you need to balance out the probability of a really bad thing happening against your probability of success. Now, as you'd expect from a Walking Dead game, combat is absolutely brutal. You have something like 2 or 3 health points. When you start running out of those, you'll start taking critical damage. And critical damage is a massive chart, and what will happen is it ranges from a sprained ankle all the way to an impaled heart. Needless to say, one of these two is a bit more permanent than the other. If a single walker attacks you, and you can't avoid it, then there's a detailed walker attack table. Again, like the Alien roleplay game, this is like there's a xenomorph chart in that. But in the Alien roleplay game, you roll a d6 and 1 of 6 attacks happen. The Walker attack for the Walking Dead game is a d66. So you roll 1 d6 for the tens and 1 d6 for the units. So it gives you loads of different results. They're a lot more interesting. Admittedly, a lot of them are basically more interesting ways to die. And the game is pretty straightforward. There's a threat level that builds up in an area as you explore it. Higher levels reflect a kind of horde. Sorry, I think they call them swarms. It feels a bit mechanical because it kind of builds up as you're going through an area. But I'm sure that once you've played through it once, I've not played this yet. Once you've played through it once, it'll probably feel quite a lot more natural. And the swarm mechanics, very reminiscent of the computer game Days Gone, as well as The Walking Dead. I'd really recommend Days Gone. I really enjoyed it, and it's a very straightforward kind of zombie apocalypse game where the biggest enemies seem to be the humans, but there are you've got to constantly avoid the zombies, which is very reminiscent of this Walking Dead game. Let's talk about the rulebook. The rulebook's 165 pages long and a hardback. It's got all the rules you need to build your own character and to get playing. This is the rulebook. First off, shall we take a quick look at some of the artwork? Well, in fact, first off, you've got a map of northeast Georgia here. I kind of missed the trick because you've got another map of northeast Georgia at the back here. Personally, you could have had 2 different settings. It would have been awesome. But, right, so into the book. Now, you've got this artwork. So it doesn't use screenshots from the TV series and it doesn't use images from the comics, which in a way is a shame because there's quite a resource there. But I think what they do is they do capture the world really nicely. Here we have a chap on the horseback coming up to a ruined city. Let's just find a few others. Some of the characters here. Nice and realistic art. There is an absolutely brilliant piece of art that I adore, which is my favourite piece in the whole thing here, if I can just find it. So you get to preview the rest of the book as I'm trying to rummage my way through it. And that is one chap. There we go. He's facing down a horde of walkers and he's got this, I don't know, this spiked stick. Clearly in some sort of prison or something there with his guard tower. So really evocative, and that feels like it could have been straight out of the TV series or the comic book. The rulebook's 165 pages long and it's in hardback. The difference between this and the starter set is this has all the rules that you need to build your own character. So the first thing you do is choose an archetype. So here we go. We've got the farmer and the homemaker. The list, you could be a criminal, doctor, farmer, homemaker, kid, law enforcer, a nobody, an outcast, politician, preacher, scientist and soldier. All of these are reminiscent of the characters in the series, although the game does go to an awful length to kind of encourage you to make up your own characters and not just to play through the books. Through the comics. Different archetypes have different talents that add to the character. If we take the soldier could be disillusioned, and that means that they won't gain stress when they see someone else commit any atrocities, which gives you an idea of the tone of the game. Or there's the law enforcer, might have steady hands, and steady hands mean once per session you can re-roll a stress dice, so when you're going to mess up you can redo it. So this is your basic kind of character that you create. You're then looking to build a haven as well that goes with it. That might have been earlier in the book. Here we go. So you choose different NPCs that go in your group, and you can also build a haven. And so these relationships in this haven are really important in this game because you're not looking to gain levels or defeat a big bad guy. You're literally just looking to survive. And so communities are a large part of that. You'll find that the NPCs, they'll develop over time. They'll have, this is like a random kind of collection of NPCs that you roll for. They'll have their own issues as well as their own gear and their own training. So it's kind of a balance of how useful they are and how much trouble they're going to cause you. If I then skip to so we've got combat here. Combat, as I say, is largely a case of rolling so many d6 and trying to get a 6 to hit. There's rules for vehicles and things like that, but I'm just trying to give you a general idea of it, so I'm not going to get too into that. Here we go. So this talks about campaign preparations. So the GM will populate the area around the haven with encounters, and there are a selection of rival survivors and factions in the book here. So let's just quickly, here we go. You can randomly generate some of the factions and the leaders that you run into. There's lots of charts in here. Or there's some examples. So the Black Hearts are a one gang you could run into. There's the Sugar Hill, which is a large community that you could run into and interact with. There's loads of charts in here that generate random encounters as well. Now, as I say, I've not played this game, but it's very reminiscent of Twilight. I want to say Twilight Imperium. I was playing that last weekend. Of Twilight 2000. So Twilight 2000 uses a similar idea, where it's set sort of after World War III, and the players are exploring the map and cards are drawn to create encounters. Now, I've played that and it felt like it was really kind of a brave stepping away from books and written down adventures. But actually the cards are really cool, and I imagine it'll be the same with the dice here, because you generate the area. You don't know, as a GM, you don't know what your players are going to discover. And then it was like the world was kind of coming alive around me, and I'd sort of tie it in to tie them all in with each other and build this plot. And then there's sort of scenarios that you can tie in as well. The idea of the game is that there's 3 ways of playing. You can play as a campaign mode, where your goals and your choices, kind of the group efforts, are what create the storyline. There's a survival mode, which gives you a dangerous situation that needs to be handled immediately. The survival mode is kind of the one that features locations from the TV series and gives you the chance to have the characters from the TV series in the adventures if you want. And then there's a solo mode, where you and a handful of NPCs are trying to survive. So in the book there is a campaign already set up for Atlanta. Here we go. This gives you everything you need as a GM to really start. There, your haven is all ready. You've got your NPCs set. You've got your map, another map of Northeast Georgia, and then some of the factions that are around here and where the swarms are. And some set challenges we work through. And then we've got the Golden Ambulance. This is a survival mode setup. So this is the one-off encounter that you'll get. And it tells you when they're set, actually. This is set between season 2 and 3 of The Walking Dead. Several of your group have come down with pneumonia, and you're basically looking to find medicine for them. So we've got random locations that you can then introduce. This is the appendix where I've just snuck into. You've got ways of kind of describing walkers, literally dice rolls. They don't affect the stats of the walkers. There really is only the one monster, in this, which is the one type of zombie. So it just gives you ways of describing what a walker looks like quite quickly, which I think is pretty cool. You've got flavour for rooms that you just roll on here. You've got different locations to just give you an idea of fleshing everything out. I think it's really cool. It seems to be pretty thorough. You then, bizarrely, after the appendix, I suppose it might be part of the appendix, you've got the solo rules. Here we go, the solo play rules, which I'm not going to talk about much because I'm not really a solo gamer, so I'm not really going to be able to do it any justice. It kind of gives you more slightly advanced rules where the lucky die they have, which is just where if you need to decide something, you roll a dice, basically. That becomes more important in the game. And then, you've got kind of themes that you roll for and all sorts of stuff there. You can choose your map, which you then populate. So if solo gaming is your thing, it's there. And then standard at the end of the book, you've got, here we go, you've got your character sheets. And then just some other bits to help you flesh out your character. So you've got, the haven, what you're working on here. So that'll help everyone plan out. So in a second I'm going to talk about the starter set. But before I do, I've just got a couple of observations so far. There's 3 maps in the book, all of which are Georgia, which kind of made me feel like they missed the trick there. It doesn't feel like the complete Walking Dead series. There's a few bits that I really enjoyed at the end of the series that aren't in here. The Commonwealth I thought was a really kind of interesting setup for The Walking Dead. I won't say any more for spoilers. And the same again, the Whisperers. I really felt like The Walking Dead, the comics, got very kind of, I don't want to say samey, but you are just running into zombies all the time. And then the Whisperers were a real breath of fresh air as kind of really nasty bad guy that felt really, really innovative. And they're not in this book, so I don't know if maybe there's the potential for an expansion in the future that we could see. but it would have been kind of cool to see them in it. Anyway, on with the starter set. That was the core book. Let's take a look at the starter set, see what we think. The starter set is packed full of stuff. You have 2 packs of 10 dice. So, as we've seen already, you've got 10 of the Walker dice and 10 of the normal black dice here. There's a dial here, just a nice simple dial that takes you from 1 to 6. That's used to track the threat level of the area that you're going through. There's some maps. Let's get these out properly. So there's some encounter maps here. They're pretty plain. There's no hexes or anything on them, but they're a good thing just to show you the area that you're exploring. And so there's 3 areas that are covered. These relate to the adventure, which is called the Wolves' Den, that we get. Okay, there you go. 3 areas there. There's 6 characters, PCs that are done. I think it's 5 PCs and then an NPC that a PC can play if you die. If whoever dies first gets the character. Pretty straightforward, kind of cool. So the names, you've got a male and a female name to kind of choose from there. All the stats you need, a little bit of roleplay guidance to you. So it's quite an easy start there. There's then a map of Georgia on one side. Oh, how professional's that as I drop it. So we have Georgia on that side, nice large map. And then Southwest Virginia on the other side. 4 characters from the comics and shows. We've got Michonne, Gabrielle, Carol, and Glenn. So there's those 4 characters included there. And then you've got a scenario, which is the Wolves' Den. Which is basically what they call a survival mode scenario, and it's 16 pages. It kind of sets the scene, and then the players are just left to it to kind of explore and run into everything that's set up. That uses the 3 encounter maps that we've got in the box set. And then there's a small rule book as well. This is about 40 pages, so it's much smaller than the main rules. It kind of finds the key rules out from it, but it doesn't have any of the adventures, character design rules, the havens, or the NPCs. Now, the Wolves' Den is a survival mode scenario. So a survival mode scenario, the idea is it feels like a one-shot is what they're getting at. But actually this feels more like an introduction to The Walking Dead, the way you can play it. The characters are dropped right in it, but once you're set up, then it'll be more like the start of a campaign. It's a pretty cool way of getting your players to find out if they enjoy The Walking Dead game. So maybe you want to start with the starter set and then buy the rulebook later on when you want some more depth. One thing I would say about it is there's not really much of a defined ending. So as a GM, if you wanted to kind of round it off, you might want to do that. Or it feels like it's lending itself very well to going into a campaign. The starter set offers a lot more bang for your buck than the rulebook does. There's a lot of extras here. You've got all the dice. It's more of a complete set. Personally, I would start with the starter set. Probably give that a go, and then buy the core book later on. If you found that you and your players enjoyed it, or if you just wanted to read some more. It gives you the maps encounters. The dice are essential, although of course you can use ordinary 6-sided dice as long as you've got 2 colours. The one gripe I kind of have with this is the starter set is the same as other starter sets by other companies, which I'm never sure if they're that ideal for beginners. Like, they're kind of an entry point. But in the starter set, there's bits that I'm not quite sure of. I can't see why they give you the series characters at all in this box set, because they don't seem to be in the adventure at all. In fact, the other books, the rule book, seems to steer you away from kind of playing the characters from the TV series. So I don't really know what they're doing. It's like they're trying to bait you in. Also, more of an introduction explaining, what a roleplay game is and how people could get into that would be helpful. But that said, if you sit down and read it, I'm sure you can work it out. There's bound to be some online playthroughs and stuff for it as well. This game definitely seems to capture the feeling of the series really well. I've not played it, but I've only had a week. But it's the sandbox kind of feel for the game seems to really make it stand out from other games and really capture that Walking Dead feel rather than a kind of Dungeons and Dragons. I'm going to go into a dungeon and battle my way through and set adventures. It's very much more of a survival game. So yeah, if you like The Walking Dead, I'd recommend it. If you want something kind of straightforward and where you all feel like heroes, maybe this isn't the game for you. So please check it out. And I'm Steve. This is Toys in the Hood. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Cheers. Bye.